Hi, YouTube, if anyone's out there. Another session of our DuckDB an action book club, and this week we're doing Python integration. So here, I'll share my screen. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have that GitHub repo pulled up that Jonathan had posted, and I had been checking out this thing called IBIS, which is like a Python data frame library that uses yeah, so they're all pretty cool. But here, so I'll just get going with this, I guess. And so yeah, I think this chapter is pretty simple, like technically. I think it's not too hard to follow, but so the basic workflow. Well, the basic idea is that you can connect either a Python session or an R session to uh, like a file backed DuckDB instance or just like an in-memory DuckDB instance. And so especially if you're using like the in-memory option, you end up with something that's like pretty similar to like a traditional data frame, like a dplyr Tibble or a pandas data frame, but like a lot faster. And so it's I think a pretty interesting option. Uh my own experience with it so far, and I guess I'll just, I'm just kind of like brainstorming here, is like I found it pretty handy for like querying data, like pretty like if you want to know like, oh, okay, like, how many flights, leave on Thursdays, from the flights data set or whatever. I haven't found it as easy to kind of like build databases. Like I remember when we were doing our initial exploration of SQL, we had the kind of two sections. One was for kind of like building up databases and like inserting data, and one was for kind of doing analytical queries. I think it's not as well suited to like that to building up the databases, but so far I found it really good for like the queries, especially if you're already in Python or like or in R, or maybe you're in Quarto and you want to do a little report or whatever. I have found it pretty handy. So I'll just kind of go through this. So
Is
like,
it
oh,
concerning at all that PyPI is misspelt there?
oh, is it? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good catch. Um, maybe I'll highlight that for the editors. Yeah, that's a little concerning, but I don't know how much Manning puts into to editing. I
A
feel like they.
lot. I did a Manning book and there was a lot of
Oh,
editing
really? Oh my
with a
gosh.
technical
Okay.
editor and everything.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, then they just missed this. Um, but that's a good catch. Jonathan's very good catching the very small mistakes that have been made a couple times throughout the book. Um, yeah, so
That one was a red light.
yes,
I
yes.
saw it too, and I said no. It's pi y
Maybe
pi I
I'll
pi
maybe
y.
I'll make it
Yeah,
red so that we don't
yeah.
we don't. Um,
Also, Corey, it's interesting. This book. I went back, to the first pages of this book,
mhm,
and I said, "What? When was this released?"
yeah.
And supposedly it was released in 2024. If you see that
Oh, huh,
version of DuckDB, we are in
yeah,
1.44. Okay.
yeah.
So I don't know. Apparently, there hasn't been any intent to, kind of update,
Keep that book updated.
the
Yeah,
content because come on, zero point
yeah.
0.1, that's almost beta.
I know. Yeah, I know a few times. Just the stuff that I know has changed since then. I've noticed like, oh wow, this has changed since
Yeah.
since the book was written. But yeah, they haven't really kept up with it. I wonder if maybe no one bought it. I don't know, but yeah, they haven't kept up with it that much. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah. So that's also is a warning light
yeah,
that some of the stuff here that they're presenting probably, has changed.
yeah, yeah,
Definitely has changed.
yeah. And even, I don't know, like if this IBIS thing, I know it's been around for a while, but at some point started switch to using DuckDB as kind of like the default backend. And I don't know if that was the case in 2023 or 2024. Like I think a lot has changed. since this book was published. Uh, but I think mostly has changed for the better. Like I think, yeah, no,
Definitely.
yeah. I think there are more features, than there were. So yeah, I guess we maybe there's stuff we don't know about, but I think most of the stuff that the book has uh is not wrong necessarily, but it maybe is like limited, I guess,
Mhm.
in time. Um, so yeah, I guess this is maybe a bit of a not like the normal way maybe to do to run uh a SQL query in the Python session. Normally, you kind of go through this more, but you can, I guess. So I guess the point of this is that if you want to just run a SQL query without kind of doing the syntax of connecting to the database and whatnot, I think this will just do it for you. Like I think this will kind of by default connect to an in-memory database and select 42 as it were. So it's kind of trying to be pretty quick and easy there. But normally you're either you're going through this workflow here, which is either to start an in-memory connection using this duckdb.connect, or you can use a kind of like a file-based connection. And I don't know if I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but I've sometimes found that my like if I'm dealing with a data set that's larger than my memory, sometimes I can stretch a little bit further using the file batch connection than with a memory connection. Like if I have, like this computer has 24 gigabytes of memory, like say I have, 30 or whatever. Sometimes I can get, I can do it on the file back connection, but if I do it on an in-memory connection, I'll start to crash, which I think is interesting. I don't know if anyone else has had that issue. Um,
That makes sense, doesn't it?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the memory connection is going to push the entire thing into memory, and the file-based one not necessarily all at once.
yeah. And yeah, if I look at like if I pull up like my memory usage on my computer, I can see that the file-based connection is maybe being a little bit more sparing with the use of memory. Like whereas the memory one, it'll go all the way up to the maximum and then just like start kind of swapping in and out as little as it can, and it takes forever. So I have found that sometimes with if I have a big file, the file-based connection does a little bit better. Um, um,
So I believe it's going
oh,
to do something like what SQLite does, where it'll only do the read on the actual information that's needed.
mm-hmm.
Like you don't ever push the entire thing into memory if you've got the
Yeah.
file-based one.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think it's trying. Yeah, I think it's trying to be conservative, I guess, with its usage of memory. Um, so yeah, I mean, and then there's another kind of quirk, I guess, with the Python specifically. And I guess now we kind of have this on the R side too. So like, I know I feel like we should have made a diagram or something. So like, both Python and R have like a standard way of interacting with an external database. So I guess in Python, that's this Python DB API, and in R, I think that's like DBI and then like D B plier. I think if you want the translation. Um,
The DB plier will do that translation, but I think the back end for that would still be DBI.
yeah, okay,
So it's abstractions on top of
yeah,
abstractions. I
yeah.
have heard recently that there's an alternative to DBI now, but I have not looked into it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Um, That's interesting because like the DBI, I know looking at the Python syntax just for connecting to the database, it is a little cleaner, I think, than the DBI syntax. I want to, it'd be nice if there was a better way. But yeah, so anyhow, if we think of, the options here, so you can either go kind of the standard route in either language and use either DBI or the Python DB API, or there's a specific DuckDB API for each language. So in Python, I think they just call it like the DuckDB API, and it's part of this DuckDB package. And then in R, I believe it's the duck plier package, which tries for like tight kind of dplyr integration. And so it seems like in general those APIs are like have a few more features than the sort of the like standard one when it comes to DuckDB. So this is using kind of the like standard Python database API. So using the execute function here on this, whatever. And in general with these, like the workflow is you build up a query, and then you like fetch the results, or what is it in R? It's I think execute. I think in R execute does the fetch. I can't remember, but maybe we should look over here at
Yeah,
this.
DB execute, I think.
Okay, execute. Yep.
DB
So yeah,
execute.
yeah. So in general, you're kind of like basically like you're building up a query behind the scenes, and then once you're done, you're basically like pulling the trigger and pulling your results into whatever your R or Python session. Okay, so now they're talking, I think, about their special Python API. So you can ingest data. And so, yeah, so this, you can see that the connection object, so like in general, you'll create a connection object to get started. And so the connection object here has a read CSV method, I guess. And I actually think that's just like a pure dupe of the DuckDB read CSV. And so it will behave exactly kind of as you expect. One question I had that I didn't look up, but here, I'll switch my I'll see if I can switch to another screen here, or another application. How do I do that? Here we go. I wanted to know, so I think I switched my screen. I wanted to know what, like if you do a read CSV like that, what it names the table, or if it even loads it as a table. I don't know how to, and so sorry, this is a bit of a detour, I guess, but I wanted to see, like if
Cory,
there was,
if you want to know what type of object is population,
mhm,
you just use type population, and it will tell you.
I see, okay.
Yep.
And then what about like, so like I know that in the Python session, I know that there's this object named population. I'm wondering if there's in the DuckDB session, is that object also registered as population, or does it have some weird name? Um,
Well,
that I,
the type is telling you that it's a class and it's a DuckDB.
but
Okay.
is there like,
So you have to treat it, you have to treat it as such. So you have to use the con again,
mhm,
to interact with that. Okay. If you convert it to a pandas data frame and you import the pandas,
yeah,
library, then you can interact, as a pandas data frame. But there has to be an instruction to tell it to convert that object.
I see.
If it stays at DuckDB, is an object that DuckDB is the one that is going to interact with it.
Is doing like I guess let's see here. I
Yep.
did a little, so like say I tried. Is that how how do you get the tables that are in your session? So I guess maybe I just don't have any tables.
Correct. Yeah, because you didn't load a database.
Okay, I didn't load it. Okay, got it. I
Yeah.
wonder if oh wait, so I'm going to switch back to the book now.
Yeah,
I
you have
wonder.
to do select, let's say
Okay,
asterisk from population.
okay.
Okay. And I will bring you the rows and everything.
Let's see. I'm trying to go back to my. Here we go. I think I'm back to the book.
Hmm.
Okay, and so here, yep. And so there's what you just described, this kind of
Yep.
type. Um, uh, and yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of the
You
workflow
see,
that we're
you see that
expecting.
instruction, execute, select asterisk from population, limit to, fetch all, is going to
Hmm.
bring you from that class, that type, object, is going to bring you the first two rows.
And so, okay, and do you think when it's giving me the first two rows, how do we think it gets returned? Um, what do we think the t data class of that is? Here, I'll try it. I'll enclose that whole thing and type and see what I
I
get.
believe it's just an output right now
Okay,
because
yep,
it's
you're right.
fetch all. Yeah.
Yep, it's a I
Well,
guess
I
it's
think
a list.
But you could say,
that
for
next
example, to
paragraph
pandas. You could say dot to
Right.
pandas
Yep.
using the
So
pandas
yep.
library, and then
Mhm.
you'll get that data frame.
Let's see. I'll try.
But I think before you explicitly do that conversion to pandas, what you still have is a relation.
Hmm.
At that point, it's the instructions for doing it. And if you were to run it again, it does another HTTP query to go get that
Okay.
CSV again
Yep.
until you actually like
Mhm.
solidify it into something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's non-persistent. You
I
have
see.
to
Okay.
keep going to the well. Yes.
And so that's maybe this thing here, I guess.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Wait, and
Yep.
so I wonder what happens if I do type population. So this will still
Still going to be a relation up until you solidify it.
I see.
And I think that paragraph just above where you've highlighted says that it's going to be a tuple of a bunch of stuff that won't make a lot of sense because it's describing that full relation.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess in the DuckDB session, like the name of it, in this case, you explicitly specify it. So I guess it will be population. Um,
Mhm.
Interesting. Okay. Because that's something I've run into where I'm kind of building up a query in like Python or R, and then I get to a point where there's something that like Python or R can't do, so I have to switch to the SQL. And then I'm like, oh crud, I don't know the name of the table that I'm actually referencing. So I have to figure it out. So that's something I was curious about. If I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I don't think I described it very well, but
No, I think that makes sense. But up
okay,
until that
okay,
point, you have not created one.
okay, yeah. Um, so again, yeah, we're just kind of cruising through here. The Yeah, okay, so yeah, so if you just want to access the table and kind of save this like I guess reference to the table. So I guess this isn't pulling anything in, but it's just a sort of a pointer, I guess, to the table. Um, and then you can run uh, queries on it, kind of using this sort of method chaining syntax style, which is, that's pretty cool. And so here they're just going through this next section is that, they're kind of describing the Python API. I mean, one thing here, I'll just like Google it just to, and sorry, I hope I'm not bothering everyone with all my screen switching. Is that, like one nice thing about the Python API is it's a little better documented than the R API, which isn't really all that well documented at all. And then they're both like way, way, way less well documented than the SQL API, which is like really quite well documented. Um, so, I don't know. I guess to the extent that that matters to you, maybe that weighs in favor of one and the other. But yeah, the Python one they've done, I would say like an okay job. The R one, you're kind of really almost, I feel like you're kind of more relying on external resources like this GitHub, and then the SQL one is like super super well documented, and also more has more features. Um,
I'd say that
so
probably comes back to which ones they control.
yeah,
So if they were to do that documentation for the R1 and the R1 changes, as tidyverse stuff is
yeah,
wont to do,
yeah, yeah,
they've got to keep up with it.
yeah. That's true. And I actually haven't looked at the documentation for like duckplyr, um, and I wonder. I don't even know who the developers of. I guess the developer for duckplyr is Hannes. the kind of founder, I guess, of DuckDB. So maybe he can, maybe the duck plier documentation is good. I don't know.
But also Kirill.
Wait, sorry, what?
Also Kirill is on there.
Oh, right, right. Anyway, is he the, who is that? I don't know who that is.
Pretty prolific developer for Posit.
I see. Okay, okay. All right. Okay, so it's like a joint effort, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and I guess Posit is the copyright holder. So yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's kind of a non sequitur, but I just bought this the Polars book. That's my next book, is the Python Polars book, and the author of this book also works at Posit. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, what direction, what they see as like the future of kind of data frame libraries and stuff like that. Um, anyhow, so yeah, I think this is not particularly exciting, this little code snippet. It's just, but I think it's showing you can do, if you close everything in parentheses, which I think makes it an expression, I believe, you can kind of use this method chaining syntax. And, it starts to look a little bit like dplyr, if that's, to me, that's kind of what I'm most comfortable with. These are a little bit like the
Piping
pipes,
functions.
yes.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, they're a little bit
So
like pipes.
nearly, but I like that there's a filter and a limit
Hmm.
function. What I don't like, that becomes even worse later when it's just SQL, is all of the stuff that gets stringified. So this
Yeah,
population greater than some number, that whole thing is an expression
yeah,
string. And if you wanted that to be dynamic, now you're working with like pasting strings together that
yeah,
it's a nightmare. I hate
yeah,
doing that.
yeah, it gets yucky.
Especially because you can't do like static analysis on it when you start putting in a variable in place of that number that has to get injected into a string.
And
It's
then
I don't like it.
there was another one down here that was particularly yucky looking. I can't remember. Um, I don't know. I guess we'll get to it. But yeah, I think in general, like the fact that these are just strings that are, were basically strings of that represent a SQL query, it starts to get kind of yucky, especially if you are doing a lot of like substitutions where you're trying to parameterize it. And so they have a few ways to make that easier, but I think it's not as easy as if you were just in pure Python or pure R or whatever. And so it does get kind of, yeah, I mean, like you said, like it just like kind of um, not a good user experience sometimes.
And I won't
Um,
put too much blame on DuckDB for that as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah,
Pandas, if you're trying to filter columns, does the exact same thing with a native
yeah,
data frame that's in
yeah.
Python.
That's what I was reminded, even just this little panda section that we have coming up, I was reminded how much I don't really like pandas. I think it's just like so I can like never remember how it works. I think it's just like such a kind of like overly complex syntax, and I don't know, I don't love it. Um,
So jumping forward just a little bit,
oh yeah.
I guess that's where things like IBIS have
Hmm.
their motivations. So I put it in the chat. Narwhals is one that may
Oh,
be a
I
bit
have,
more common.
yep.
Um, and there's a comparison there between the two. But it's got to the stage where people can't translate between 10 different things, and now there's like meta
Yep.
packages.
I wonder, so I've heard of narwhals. Do people use it uh like if you're like a user doing analytics, would you use narwhals, or is it more for like
No.
people? Okay, it's for
It's, I
like
think, for
package.
developers who
Okay,
want to be
okay,
able to
yep,
take in a
okay,
pandas or a
yep,
polars or a duckdb and their package
okay,
just works.
okay.
So if you open the hamburger menu on the left,
Oh yeah. Let's see. Sorry,
um,
my it's a little. I'll have to scooch a little bit because it's blocked by oh, over
yeah,
here, I guess.
ecosystem towards the bottom.
Okay. Oh yeah.
These are the
Interesting.
packages that
Huh.
use this internally.
Uh-huh. Cool. Huh. So they're all using it to provide some kind of like
I want to take a
interoperability.
data frame and I'm going to
Yep.
let you use the one that you're familiar with.
Wow. That's really cool. Huh. And also another animal theme. We're really going,
Yes.
everything has to be an animal now.
There's a podcast episode with the author of this. I try to remember who that was. But yeah, they said they were just looking for an animal that hadn't been used yet.
Oh, that's funny. I think
Yeah, at the end,
I remember seeing, I don't think I listened to the whole thing, but I do remember seeing that podcast episode. Um,
and at the end of
yeah,
this, they have the comparison to Ibis of what's different.
yeah, and like, I've been playing around with Ibis a little bit. It's definitely more limited than the DuckDB sequel. It has way, way fewer functions than the DuckDB sequel uh, API. But it is like in terms of like the user interface, like you don't have this. Oh, here's the one I thought was kind of yucky. The filter where you have to, it's like a quote, and then you have the not, and then you have to do this regular expression. I thought that was just kind of an
Gross.
unpleasant way to have to do that. But yeah,
It was
I
the
just
test set by Posit that had Marco Gorelli.
okay. Yeah, I think I've listened to some of those. I think they're usually pretty good. I often, don't make it to the through the full thing. I usually get, 30 or 40 minutes through them, but I think they are pretty interesting. Um, uh, yes. So I think basically, the same options that are available in the SQL API for like kind of filtering or pattern matching or whatever are, also available here. But yeah, I agree that it's not like the most readable or easy to write way of filtering. And so IBIS does have a more I don't know. I might as well, since we're kind of going through everything, just like basic. Where's their filter thing? It's a little bit. Although I don't. This example maybe is not the best, but uh, it's a little bit more like dplyr. Although even though dplyr you
It
usually
looks like pandas though.
yeah yeah. Although they do have this feature where you can what is it? And I do think IBIS is a Wes McKinney project, and so it does have uh, it is kind of like Pandas. Um, they do, it starts to look a little bit more like dplyr when you start to do this method chaining. They have this syntax for this little underscore. I think does the same thing as it does in not the base R pipe, but like the magritter, or I don't know how to say it, like the old pipe, the sort of tidyverse pipe that has the percentage sign in it, the two percentage signs in it, where you can
The
pass
Magritte one.
the
The base
Mac.
pipe actually does this as well, but you have to name the
Oh,
argument.
oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
But this just looks maybe it's all the comments, but this looks really hard to read.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's not as good. I think it's fair to say, or at least not as readable. Yeah, I think that's right. I think to me it's easier to write just because it is more similar, to like kind of our style of like the order of formulating the query is more like how you would do it in R, whereas in SQL it's kind of like almost like reverse. But yeah, I agree that it's certainly not quite like dplyr level readability. Um, so yeah, I don't know. And again, I'm just kind of like commenting here, breaking away from the book. Like I do have some frustration. I feel like we have a lot of options, and none of them like do. There's no like best option. Like dplyr, I think has the best syntax. DuckDB is really fast. Uh, you know, um, I haven't messed around with Polars so much, but maybe Polars is the maybe that's trying to combine having good syntax with speed. Uh, I mean, Pandas is kind of yucky to write, but like has so much functionality. Like if you, pretty much any operation that you can think of, you could do in Pandas, but it's hard to write and it's slow. Like, I don't know. I just feel like we have a lot of data frame options, but none of them are like kind of like obviously the best. I feel like we're just kind of stuck with a bunch of like second place ones. So and one thing I've encountered too, when you start to work with these like kind of the Python or the R API for DuckDB, is it's great when you're doing data wrangling, but then when you start to move to modeling, you have you have like, say you have a bigger data that maybe would be hard to work with in R, say it's like 10, gigabytes or whatever, and you're super happy using DuckDB, everything's going fast, but then you have to start doing some modeling and you have to start making matrices, then suddenly you're back in slow land, and so I don't know, there is a lot of frustration for me about like, I feel like we, these DuckDB and polars and all that, they're really great because they bring so much speed, but like the end-to-end experience isn't quite there yet. So that's kind of my editorial on this stuff. But anyhow, so going down to again, so I think the point of this section is basically that you can write raw SQL, and then if you want to have some parameterization, you can use the execute function. And so the execute function is important, I guess, because of the possibility of these SQL injection attacks. I think not a huge risk if you're just querying data locally on your laptop. I guess if you're building some kind of like internet facing application or user facing application, these are more important. But I think if you're by yourself, these don't really matter. But so yeah, the idea that someone could insert something malicious or just kind of negative into a user input that then messes up your SQL query, I think that's kind of the idea of the SQL injection attack. So to kind of get around that, they have this thing, this style here where you call execute on your query. You use this $ to, or is that right?
Annoyingly, not that $, the
This
other one.
$sign, sorry, this $sign. And then you provide this dictionary that maps the thing that you indicated with the $ to a value. So, that is not the nicest, I think, way to write it. And it's not quite as flexible as like a true kind of like variable. But, we're kind of approaching it. And so this section is just about pandas. Maybe I don't know if anyone here really likes pandas, so maybe we'll skip this section. But so the takeaway from this section is that if you have a pandas data frame, like this people data frame, you can like just query it as if it was a SQL table. And I mean, this is pretty interesting. Like it registers, like if you have a pandas data frame name table in your Python section, it's automatically available in the DuckDB connection with the same name, which I don't know, that's pretty handy. I guess that's a nice kind of interface functionality.
Nice for simple things. I worry what happens if you have like two different things. Like there's do you need to quote strings if you're loading an external? And I guess that comes down to like suffixes and what again, it's just working with strings and I don't like it.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think that's the takeaway of this section. I think they're basically just showing that you can extend this parameter kind of functionality. You can also query polars, data frames, and pi-arrow tables, which there's an arrow package for R as well. I don't know why you would use arrow really if you had DuckDB. Like I think I could be wrong about this.
Predates DuckDB by a lot.
Yeah. and I could be wrong about this, but I do think DuckDB, polars, uh, I mean, obviously Arrow are all using that same like Apache Arrow columnar format or something like that. I don't really understand the technical details, but I think they have some level of common architecture that allows for easy interoperability. So finally, you can have these
which for a
users.
long time was severely lacking. Like there were
Yeah,
lots of different approaches to try to get data to read the same into R and Python.
yeah.
Um, so having, I
Interesting.
think
Okay,
database
yeah,
is probably the best way, but
yeah,
like the old feather formats that
right,
I think
yeah,
Wes worked on, there were a lot of different approaches for I want to read this in two different languages.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it definitely has gotten a lot better. And I remember, you know, even just working with larger than memory data in R used to be like such a pain, and you had these like chunked matrices. I forget what the packages were called, like big something. I can't remember, but it was so much harder than it is with DuckDB. So like a lot, these have made our lives a lot easier, than they used to be. Um, so yeah, you can define. I think this is kind of interesting. So like these user-defined functions, you define them using Python. And Richard, if you're leaving to go to the airport, I want to say, have a good trip. Um, uh, but so yeah, you define the. Did they do the definition? Uh, oh, this is just setting up the question. So they have these fields that have like one too many spaces at the end, I believe, or no, or way too many spaces, I guess. Um, uh, and so they want to use the trim function on them. And so I think DuckDB actually has a trim function already, but we're kind of pretending for the sake of this exercise that it doesn't. And so you can define a Python function and then call this create function on it. And then that function is exposed in the SQL, which is, again, kind of interesting. So you're not, when I saw this section, I thought it meant creating Python functions that you call in Python on DuckDB uh, like instances, but actually you're calling it in SQL, which I don't know is interesting. Uh,
Potentially very powerful. So you
yeah,
said like having to bring things into matrices. If you could do that work on the SQL side so that
yeah,
you didn't actually have to create the matrix and work back in regular R,
yeah,
that could be, yeah, very
yeah,
powerful.
really good. And there's some, um, again, like, where's my, I'll just scroll up here real quick. Like there's some cool, what do I had this other blog post that was like, sorry, now I'm just like, jumping all over the internet, but like some basic kind of pre-processing that you would do in, dplyr or tidy models or, scikit-learn or whatever your thing is, you can do in DuckDB. So that is, so like if you, want to do one-hot encoding where you're kind of encoding categorical variables, ones and zeros, like you can do that. And it is, uh, I'd say like generally it will be faster. So I feel like we're kind of getting there a little bit, but we're not quite, not quite there. Um,
I think the duckplyr stuff is the other half of this that
mm,
translates your stuff into native SQL, but what it lacks is a way for the user to do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I guess that comes down to how much of the general API is supported. So the example there of using the strips, I'm guessing that that has to convert into the internal trim. And does it know how to do that? Yeah. Does it know how to
yeah.
do that for every function? Probably not.
I can't. Yeah, I can't. I mean, one thing. Um, Again, I mean, maybe I'm too. Just because I've been playing with it, I'm sort of, uh, advocating for IBIS, I guess. Even though I'm not sure. But they do have these. Sorry, user defined. Shoot, where is it? Um, Maybe it's in here somewhere. um, reference built-in functions. They do have this thing where you can expose a duckdb function that hasn't been uh, explicitly, like by either the IBIS stebs, or I guess in this case the IBIS stebs, to the IBIS API. You can expose a duckdb function to it, which is pretty cool. I was messing around with it, and I wouldn't say it's like 100%. I felt like it was not always working, but maybe I wasn't doing it right. But um, that's an option if you want to use some DuckDB function that isn't represented in the uh, in this case in the Python standard Python API. Maybe you can do this kind of like song and dance where you like expose it to the, in that case, the question is like, okay, is that better than just writing SQL? I don't know. But
Yeah, I think there is an equivalent for R. There's
okay.
I can't remember what they called it. If it was the DuckDB package that gave you a whole bunch of extra things that weren't in DuckPlayer.
Okay. Oh, I think you sent that around at the very
Is that the
beginning.
DuckDB one there?
Oh, wait,
Because that's
where?
not Duck.
Oh, this
So
one.
that DuckDB package. Yeah, so
Um, yeah.
that may be the one I'm thinking of that has like more internal stuff that's not just translation layer.
Yeah, I can't remember. Someone at the very beginning of the book club did send, and maybe it was this, but it had,
I
some basically was like
think
extending
that
it
was
a
me,
little
yeah.
bit. Yeah. Yeah. And there are definitely things I want to use in DuckDB that aren't exposed. Like IBIS doesn't have transactions, which I think are kind of a cool concept. I like the idea of being able to, um, I mean, this isn't in the book at all, I guess, but like you can kind of uh, like kind of roll back.
Mm.
I don't know. Let's see.
It can be very important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so yeah, that can be nice, save a lot of time. And so that's not exposed in at least the Python one that I'm aware of. But um, anyhow, so that's all this. Blah 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 blah. Um, I do think also I would be surprised if the user-defined functions necessarily have the same speed ups as like native DuckDB functions. I think in some cases they will. Like obviously, I think if you're basically just calling pre-existing a function that existed DuckDB already, then like you probably will be very fast. I bet. I don't know. I think they're doing a lot of optimization to like get it to like run on multiple threads and stuff that like I feel like a user-defined function wouldn't necessarily benefit from. I could be wrong about that, but that's my suspicion. Um, so blah 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 blah. You can, remove them if you want. Sometimes you have to explicitly specify the input and output data types if the sort of like function register, the register function isn't able to infer them properly. And I don't know. I think that's kind of it for this. I mean, oh, here we go. Yeah, again, I mean, this is quite similar to the Panda section. So like you just if you have a polars table and you say, I'm tired of polars, I want to be in DuckDB, or I'm tired of arrow or whatever, you can oh well they didn't do it. But I think you can do the same thing you do with pandas where you write SQL. You could directly query it with SQL. And yeah, so I think this is interesting. I do the big question for me is like, okay, like what do I use? And I have a lot of indecision about that. I don't know, like in your day to day, are you like sticking with one, or are
I
you
haven't
jumping
used it day
around?
to day.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing this out of interest, but
Yep.
I don't actually use this yet.
Do you like what like of all the data frame libraries, what's your current like favorite, I guess?
So I go between just base data frames,
Okay.
tibbles,
Yeah.
and the S4 vectors data frame,
Oh,
which
I
is
don't
a
even know about those.
bioconductor. Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. Oh, okay, okay. That's why I don't know about it. Is that do you do like bio specific workflows, or is it useful for everything?
A bit of both. Most of my work
Okay,
stuff is
okay,
typically bio stuff.
okay. Yeah, so maybe that's something I should look into. Um, and then there's other things like earlier this week I wanted to have like a sparse matrix, just to save like because I had a big thing of ones and zeros, and I was like, okay, it'd be good to like shrink this down, but like DuckDB doesn't have support for that, and I think none of these kind of tabular uh, data frames really support that kind of thing. So I don't know. I just feel
That's
like
actually
there's a
where bioconductor does shine, that it has a lot of those methods for specific uses, and there's absolutely
okay,
ragged array implementations in bioconductor.
okay. Well, maybe that's what I need to look at then. And
Yeah.
wait, what did you say? It was the S4. What's it
So
called?
S4 vectors is the
S4
data
vector.
frame class,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I'll see if I can send you a workflow for sparse
Okay.
matrices.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great actually, because they're definitely kind of at least so far they've been a pain for me.
Hmm.
Um,
I am going to have to drop off in a sec, though.
okay. All right. Yep. Yeah. No worries. Yeah. Thanks and yeah, next week is Mother Duck. I don't think anyone from Mother Duck is coming. Um, I don't know how interested I mean, we could also skip it. Like we could skip it if we're not like too jazzed about Mother. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Well, we can talk about it over the Slack, I guess. But yeah. Oh, and I'll stop. I'll stop the recording.